Welcome to the Word on Wednesday. This is your midweek online Bible study and devotion at Macville Christian Church. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, and it's so good to be back with you in this manner as after taking a week off last week. I hope you were able to go back and catch up on some of the videos you might have missed. Our video from 2 weeks ago, where I was filmed at Abraham Lincoln's birthplace, is one of the most watched videos that we have ever posted at Macville Christian Church. And so I'm very thankful for that you watched, thankful that you liked and shared, thankful that you told others about that. But most of all, we want to give God the glory for whatever He is doing here at Macville Christian Church, whether it be through the videos, through our work at the church, whatever it might be. I'm just so thankful that God has seen fit to allow us to serve Him. And so thank you so much for that. Today I had an idea that didn't actually come through. I had planned to come to you from the cemetery at Corinth Christian Church, and I drove out there early this morning. This is being filmed on Tuesday. And I drove out there, and let's just say the wind did not cooperate very well, and I just wasn't able to do the video there. But while I was there, I was looking at the grave sites of many members of my family. A lot of people in my family are buried there at Corinth Christian Church. It's where I grew up. I grew up about 5 miles away from the church, and we were there for every time the doors were open, just about. But there at the cemetery, the bodies of my grandfather, who I never met, he passed away before I was born, and my grandmother are buried there. I vaguely remember her. I was 4 years old when she passed away. But also buried there is my father, who died in 1985, and my mother, who passed away in 2018. Her sister and her brother are also in that same plot. Around them are many people who are related to me, cousins, Perrys, or people with other names that the Perrys have married into. And I have so many memories of all those people. My aunt, my mom's sister, was a school principal. I've told you about her, I'm sure, several times. She was as tough as they came and expected so much out of her students. I've often said I believe she was a little ahead of her time, but she believed in the ability of every student to learn, and she pushed her students to excel. And I remember when she died in 1988, a man who had retired as a high-ranking officer in the United States Army came from another state to her visitation and started talking with me, and he told me that her belief in him and her expectations for him were part of the foundations for his success. And I've mentioned many times that as a teacher, she would go around asking kids about if they'd like to come to church with her at Corinth Christian Church. And many Sundays she would have a carload of kids, bringing them down to church. I was very close also to my mom's brother. He was a World War II veteran. He was in Patton's 3rd Army. But he was also quite a musician. He played the piano, played it by ear, he could play just about anything that had strings on it. And I remember him so well. He'd teach me these crazy songs and then start laughing, this distinctive laugh that he had. And he and I would play the old card game for kids, Old Mate. And he would get so tickled at me and have such fun. I was only 11 years old when he died in 1969, very young age of 52. At that age, I really don't remember crying when someone passed away. I do remember crying when he died. And I remember being in denial, because it was a mistake. He didn't die. I'd heard the phone ring in the middle of the night when my mom went to get it. And I heard her telling my father. But it wasn't real. I knew he didn't die. I knew it wasn't true. And I knew that when I came home from school the next day, he'd be waiting for me there at my house to go out and shoot baskets with me. But the reality of his death hit me a day or two later when we went to the funeral home there in Lawrenceburg, and his body was there lying in a casket. I don't remember this, but I was told that I didn't want to look at him. These are some very personal stories for me. And I'm sure that everyone watching this has a similar story. You might have a relative or two that you were especially close to. Perhaps it was a friend. Perhaps it was someone there at Macville Christian Church. Perhaps it was a former preacher. Maybe it was a teacher who, like my aunt, pushed you to succeed when you thought you couldn't. I think about those kind of people in my life, and I miss them. I miss them very much. Over the last few weeks, I've attended 2 different funerals. And I was very sad at both of them for different reasons. One was a member here at Macville Christian Church, Mr. Dwight Simpson. And I loved Mr. Simpson. I didn't know him before I came to Macville, but the day I was there for my trial sermon, he struck up a conversation with me. And then it wasn't long after I got to Macville that he started having some of his own health problems, health issues, and so I visited him quite a bit. And I just love going over and talking with him because he could make me laugh, and I think I made him laugh too. But he probably never knew how much he inspired me and how he seemed to encourage me even when he wasn't feeling well. I truly miss Mr. Simpson. I really do. The other funeral I attended was my cousin, Jana, who passed away almost 2 weeks ago in Lexington. She was a gifted first grade teacher, incredible first grade teacher. And she was also a youth leader at her church, Southside Church of Christ there in Lexington. But she suffered a very bad, horrible aneurysm about age 44. She was disabled at that time. She lived 13 more years. She's 57 when she passed away a couple of weeks ago. And for years I was just so touched by her witness, by how people reacted to her. And the witness of her husband who stood by her steadfastly. And I was blown away by the witness of her amazing church and how they cared for her. I miss all those people. I miss Mr. Simpson. I miss my cousin. I miss my uncle. I miss my aunt. I miss my father. I miss my mother, my grandparents. But when I grieve, when I think about that, I grieve not for them, but I grieve for me because they've left me behind. It's my loss. I grieve for others that have suffered that loss. You can probably see where I'm going with this week's word on Wednesday. It's Easter week. It's the week leading up to the celebration of the day that changed the world. In fact, I rarely call this coming Sunday Easter. I usually refer to it as Resurrection Sunday. And I'll just be frank with you, that wasn't a conscious decision. I don't remember when I started doing that. I started calling it Resurrection Sunday because that's what it is. It's the day that we celebrate Jesus' victory over death. It's the day we celebrate that promise that God made there in the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve had sinned. God was talking to Satan and he said in Genesis 3:15, remember this? I preach this verse a lot. Remember what he said though? I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. In other words, Satan, you're going to cause pain. You're going to cause people pain. Even you're going to cause pain to my son. But he's going to eventually crush your head and destroy you. That's what we celebrate with the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We celebrate that promise that God made to Abraham. Genesis chapter 22 and verse 18 when he says, and in your offspring shall all nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. We celebrate that prophecy from Isaiah chapter 53, starting at verse 7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that is before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people? And they made his grave with the wicked and with the rich man in his death. Although he had done no violence, there was no deceit in his mouth. We celebrate that because Jesus died for us. But we also celebrate what the apostles experienced when Jesus appeared to them. John chapter 21, starting in verse 19. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. Jesus appeared in a locked room. So they knew that resurrection was real. They knew that he was real. And they knew they had victory. You know, this Sunday, this coming Sunday, is a real celebration. You can call it Easter, you can call it Resurrection Sunday. I don't think it matters. What does matter is that we recognize what a day it is. It's the day when Jesus walked out of his tomb. It signaled that yes, we can live forever. It signaled the fact that we remember that it's not just some Sunday in the spring, but it's something that we celebrate year-round. You see, the first century church met on the first day of the week, every week, like just as we do, because that's when Jesus rose. When we come together on the first day of the week, it's not just to have a good time. It's not just to see how I can be challenged and all. But it's a remembrance of what Jesus did there in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. I often think about my family. As I said, I never never met him. I never met my grandfather. I never met either one of my grandfathers for that matter. But I hope to meet them one day beyond the grave. As I've related often, my mother played the piano at Corinth Christian Church 57 years. And after she had to give it up, if I would visit there, it didn't seem like we were worshiping if she wasn't there playing the piano. But I also know she loved to sing. And she was in a nursing home for about 3 years before she passed away. And she became known as the singing lady. And one of the songs that I would hear her sing over and over again, she would sing, I know, there's no doubt about it. He lives in my heart and I'm gonna shout it. I know, my sins are forgiven. And I'm on my way to a place that's called heaven. That's what this coming Sunday is all about. That's what every Sunday is about. Is that we can know that we have that salvation in Jesus Christ. You know, as I said, I originally had planned to film this in the cemetery there at Corinth Christian Church. A cemetery can be a place where you can really have some very quiet and deep reflection. But it's also a place of celebration. We know that those people that are buried there, if they accepted Jesus, if they put their complete trust in Him, then there's going to come a day when they're not in those graves, but they'll be living with Jesus. That's what we can look forward to. Folks, I'm looking forward to seeing you Sunday. It's such a special day. Remember, we have a special time Sunday. Have a special Easter sunrise service Sunday morning at 8:30. I look forward to seeing you then. Take care and have a